Okay, tonight we have with us Heather Mason, the founder and CEO of the Caspian Agency. And I am so excited about all the speakers that agree to come here. They make great sacrifices to be here, and I hope you really appreciate and will pay attention and learn from them. Just for example, Heather just spent time at the Sundance Film Festival. Then yesterday she was in San Diego, and today she's here, and she's been willing to come and do this to help us all learn more about entrepreneurship. So Jaden will introduce her in just a minute. How did you like Danny Clark last week? Let's hear it for Danny Clark. Yeah. So Danny's a perfect example. If you're young and you don't have a great business idea, you can't vet a business idea, you can get involved in a franchise. Every business there is in the world has been franchised, and you can find one that's a lower cost. You can find some mentors. The franchisor will help you, and he's an example of having done that at a very young age. So let's have three of you come up and tell us things you learned from Danny Clark, and then we'll get on with our lecture, okay? Yeah, okay, come on up. Who else? We need two more. What did you learn from Danny Clark? Yeah, come up, okay? And was there one in the back somewhere? Okay, come on up. So again, just give us your name. This is awesome. Wow. Okay, name and what you learned from Danny. And then we have a book for you written by Amy Anderson, one of our board members, called What Awesome Looks Like. Okay? So, let's do it.
Okay, hello. My name is Ava Gassell. And I learned so many things last week, but I think the main thing that stuck out to me is when he said, the faster you fail, the faster you can move on. And I feel like that's just something, like, you're always scared of failure and being, like, trying so hard to prevent it. But he emphasized the faster you fail, the faster you learn, the faster you can get where you want to be. And so that's what I really liked.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Jax. Everyone calls me AJ. The thing that I learned was, oh my gosh, I had it on the top of my head. Oh, be proud to wear the shirt, man. Like, you want to believe in the cause that you work for, and I really thought that was cool, because a lot of the times people are like, yeah, this is what I do. It's like, that's unfortunate, because I like what I do. So, I really like that.
Hi, I'm Olivia Smith. One of the things that stood out to me last week is when he said, growth and fulfillment come from points of tension. So for me, this means you need to put yourself out there, you need to take these risks, and it's not going to work out all the time, but it will be worth it, because there's no comfort in the growth zone, and there's no growth in the comfort zone.
Three ladies. So come over here and grab a book. And thanks for being brave and coming up here. That's a big part of entrepreneurship. Okay, Jaden will now introduce Heather.
All right. Today we are very pleased to welcome Heather Mason, the founder of Caspian Agency. Caspian Agency brings strategic discipline to high-level gatherings and convenings for good. She has secured partnerships with global giants like Rockefeller, Hewlett, and Ford Foundations, as well as the Omidyar Network and Skoll World Forum. She has continued to innovate, recently debuting the Impact Lounge at Sundance Film Festival to connect capital with content. Heather is also deeply committed to the startup community, serving on boards of the Women's Founders Network, Entrepreneurs Organization, and the USU Foundation Board. Please join me in welcoming Heather Mason.
Thank you. So how many people here have already started a business or want to start a business? Yes. I always say that even if you're not interested in business, business is interested in you. Because how many people here like money? Hey. How many people here like to spend money? How many people here like to make money? So that is business. So most of us, all of us, unless your last name happens to be very graciously bestowed, like Spielberg or Hilton or something like that, you will be in business of some sort, because you will be making, finding, getting, and probably spending money. So that is already the start of why I'm really glad why you're here. But my story began in the movie industry. And I will go into that in a minute. But the reason why that's important is because I love to start stories just like the movies, a little out of order, because I find that's more interesting. So let's start, actually, in the story of my life at the end, where we're going to end up. And that is the Skoll World Forum. I didn't start there, of course, but let's see where I ended up, because it's kind of cool to see the end, especially since I'll tell you all the tragedies and sadnesses and hardships to get here.
Are you ready?
We connect the movements, the people on the front lines.
All of us have the capacity for that piece of courage, that piece of, I can do the next right thing.
So hopefully that gives you an idea of what we do. We produce all of that. All of the guests that you saw, all of the speakers that you saw, all the plenaries that you saw. And I was waiting for the Clooney's, but I don't know if they made it into that highlight video. But the Clooney's were also there as well. And I'll show you a few more of the guests that we've been able to work with. But we produce large-scale events all over the world. Convenings, that's an invitation-only convening for about 2,000 people. Happens in Oxford, England every year. And we've been doing it for 21 years. But I clearly didn't start there. I started here. I started right here. I started at Utah State, and I had a scholarship for leadership. And I'm bummed that apparently it still isn't here anymore. It was called President Leadership Council. And I think you guys call it the ambassadors now. Exactly. Woo! But ours was, I think, a little different because every single quarter, we were on quarters, we had to earn our scholarship, and we were interviewed by how many activities we took over to lead or create. And then what they did, which is probably considered abusive now, so horrible on my little self-esteem, is they brought in your committees that you worked with and interviewed them about how good your leadership was. Well, how good do you think my leadership was at 18? I mean, I'd only been I was a student body president, I was a junior class president, but I mean, I was 4 days old, basically, when it came to leadership. And so they would interview my committees about my leadership style, they would give us all these tests, and then they would tell us to become in charge of more things or create things that we had to be in charge of. So I know one of you said failure was interesting. Oh boy, oh wow, I learned so much failure. And it was so good for me because failure really is a muscle. And if you don't exercise it, it freaks you out. And what I like to say is failure is a lot like a rerun. You know, you're all young, well, slightly younger than me. So you're all in pilot episodes. You know, I don't know if that's still a thing. When you first see the episode, you don't know what's going to happen. And then when you see the reruns, you know exactly what's going to happen. I'm in reruns. I'm in reruns of failures, so they're easier for me to handle. You all are going to experience failures for the first time. And when those pilot episodes hit, man, that hurts. Whereas when it hits at my age, oh, it still hurts. I told you guys about one that hurts. But it hits differently. It hits like a rerun. Because I've had it before. I've seen it before. I've gone through it before. But the one wonderful thing among many at Utah State was it gave me a chance to try out pilot episodes of failure. And so I highly, highly recommend this is a safe space to make failures happen. And so I did. I did an art show. I became Arts and Lectures VP, and I did an art show. Do you think that succeeded? No, it didn't. It was a horrible failure. It was absolutely miserable. I think I lost 5,000 of our school's money. Sorry. That was a bummer. And my counselor was like, that sucked. Mason, you suck. And I was like, whatever, I'm gonna do one more thing. And I'm gonna do it just for myself, because I'm in my second senior year, and I've run for Arts and Lectures VP, and so I'm gonna do something because I like poetry. And he goes, that sounds stupid. I go, I don't care. And I like beverages. And he goes, that's even stupider. What are you gonna call it? And I said, poetry with beverage. That's what I'm gonna call it. And so I started Poetry with a Beverage, which I guess still takes place here, and it's called PoBev. And that was a success. So that was cool. Yeah, so that was born on the back of failing miserably with my little art show, which was a dismal, dismal failure. But apparently this one wasn't, which is super cool. And I actually came back. I had no idea it kept going. I just thought I did it for myself, and I'd do it once a month in the Sky Room. I'd have coffee and hot chocolate, and I had games out, and we did 10 minutes poetry, 20 minutes jazz, because I love jazz, 10, 20, 10, 20. That was it. And about 75 to 100 people came. Very fun. And then I left. I graduated. And then when I came back, and I found out it was happening, I couldn't believe it. And so I said, they asked me to speak, and I said, I want to perform. So I performed the poem of how PoBev came to be. So another thing happened when I was at Utah State, because again, failure, trying things out. You are in a space to be able to do that. I was majoring in journalism, and they had a speaker come. This is why it's good to come to speakers. Speakers are awesome. So there was a speaker from the Utah Film Commission. I'd never even heard of such a thing. And I'd always dreamed maybe I'd go in the movie industry, but I never knew how to get there. I'm a kid from Idaho Falls, Idaho. Idaho in the house. Idaho. Thank you. We still love you, Utah, but Idaho. And so I went up to the lady afterwards, and I said, hey, she was talking about Utah Film Commission and that they film all these movies here in Utah. So I went up to her afterwards, and I said, can I get an internship? And guess what she said? No. She said no. And then I was like, well, I don't like that answer. I said, dumb answer. And this is kind of the story of my life. So this is before all your technology, and so I started faxing her. I know, I'm 8,000 years old. I am Precambrian. It's okay. So I started faxing her every day. Every single day I'd send her a little note. Till finally she relented and said, we'll give you an interview. And I got the job. I got the internship. Paid me nothing, which will be a part of our lessons later. It paid me nothing. That is okay. So instead, I went and lived in an apartment with, it wasn't the first walk-in closet I lived in, but I lived on the floor with a little roll-out mat and a plastic little crate with my alarm clock on it. And I was an intern for the Utah Film Commission. I waitressed at night. And I made $5 an hour. Yay. And so then she said, we do this thing called the Sundance Film Festival. We do the press office. And I thought, well, that sounds cool. And so I took 2 weeks off. Again, risk. 2 weeks off school. Now, do you think my teachers liked that? Do you think it was easy? Was it kind of stupid? Did a couple of people drop me? Yes. Do I regret even a hesitation minute of that? Sure don't. So there are things that will happen that are not easy, comfortable for you. That is why it's called a risk. If it was called an easy, everyone would do it. So no, I took off 2 weeks. It was very difficult. Don't regret it at all. Don't listen, professors and teachers. Very sorry about that. Okay. Anyway, this was me, 1994. I was so young. Oh, I missed that skin. Oh, just sigh for your collagen right now. So nice. Anyway, you'll miss it when you're older. So I was an intern in the press office at the Sundance Film Festival, and from there, I met a bunch of people, because that's what happens when you put yourself out there. And I met somebody who ran the American Pavilion at the Cannes Film Festival. And I thought, well, that sounds cool. I want to go to France. I'd never been to France. Does anybody here, I grew up in Idaho Falls, Idaho on 5th Street, if you know anything about Idaho. Anybody here think I have enough money to go to this when I'm 19 years old? No. So what did I do? Probably not the smartest thing, but do I regret it? No, of course I don't. Back then, they would just set up, tables for credit cards in the student union. Probably good they don't do that to you guys anymore. And I went and got one, and she said, you can have an internship. And I couldn't afford that, but I thought, other people are taking these opportunities. My last name is not Spielberg or Hilton. I'm going to take a bet on myself. So I got a credit card, and I charged a flight, and I flew to Cannes, France, and I represented the Sundance Channel when it launched at the American Pavilion in Cannes, France. And what that did is, that led to my first job, because then she hired me to create the study abroad program at the American Pavilion, which this year, I forget how many years it celebrates, because then you know how old I am, and I am the OG student director. And so when I went there, all the student directors gathered around me and said, you set up this program, and I set it up when I was 23 years old. So that is still continuing to this day. The program I set up right after I graduated from college. How did I get that? Because I went to the talk, bugged the lady like crazy, took 2 weeks off school, got a credit card. You can see the amount of risks that I take. And actually, it's a little frightening because I joined an entrepreneurship group once, and they did a psychology test, and it's all owners in this group. And the people came up there to analyze us, and they said, hey, who's Heather Mason? And they said, we've never seen this risk profile in a woman before. I was like, yeah, that's me. So you're getting a picture. So then this job took me out to LA. I was finally in Hollywood, but I was not ready. I was from Idaho, and I wasn't quite prepared, but I got a job on the Fox lot, and I loved it. Every day I'd drive my little Buick on the Fox lot, and I worked for Fox 2000, which is a production company, and at that time they were doing the big Fox studios. I was right on the lot. They were doing Titanic, if you remember that, at the very beginning. And we were watching the tallies go up all the way to 1 billion. And it was the first movie that had ever hit $1 billion. And that was really exciting. But this is when I learned about office politics. Ooh, sad part of our story. Because all the girls who worked in here were very rich. And they wore beautiful clothing, and I was still in JCPenney. And so my boss basically came to me and said, even though I was working the hardest, I was on the first internet tracking board of all the scripts, I was reading all the scripts, I had writer's notes, I knew everything about development. She said, you just don't look the part. Ooh, sad part of our story. So those moments will happen to you too. It's not fair. There's so many things that aren't fair. Oh, they're so not fair. And people will get promoted over you, which they did. And it won't be fair. And one of the things I love about being an entrepreneur, who do you think gets promoted over me? Nobody. And nobody says I don't look the part. But that did happen. And so that pushed me out of that because I thought, well, that sucks. So I went to work in this weird little thing that was coming up called the internet. Crazy. And the internet, this company, Showbiz Data, do you know what they said to me when I started to work there? I was head of marketing. .com boom, it was 1999. And they said, we want to launch at Sundance. And as you see, I'm a big risk taker. I said, I can do that. They said, really? You know how to do it? Of course I know how to do that. Did I know how to do that? No, of course I didn't know how to do it. But I did it, and guess what? It was the biggest thing at Sundance. The biggest thing. This is one of our pieces of coverage. We had over 200 pieces of coverage. I created the interactive lounge. This will come into our story later. At Sundance in the year 2000, we were front page New York Times, front page LA Times, all their calendar and arts editions. We were CNN, covered by CNN, covered by E! Entertainment. We were, as one stated, the biggest thing to ever hit Sundance. So that's why I felt bad when I came up with the Impact Lounge later, because I thought, Sundance, I'm going to have to do it to you again. They just got so lazy. I was like, I'm going to have to take over again, which I just recently did. But that was in 2000. Then I made a big mistake. I took a job for money. Don't do that. Don't do that. So after the big shebang at Sundance, I was offered a job in high-tech internet called Ultra DNS in the Bay Area. Now we go toward the Mordor years. Does anybody know Lord of the Rings? Yes. Now is when we go to Mordor. Sadness. But something good comes out of it. We take a pilgrimage. But at the moment, I was working at this horrible company, and I hated every day, but I was being paid very well. Don't do that. Because what did I spend all my money on? Healthcare. Because I hated my life. Like, I hated my life. But I was making a ton of money. I was VP of marketing. Dumbest idea ever. However, there was always a light, and I learned a ton about the inner workings of the internet, which comes in really handy as an entrepreneur. I know, it's one thing I know more about than my young people that I hire. I actually do understand LANs, DNS, WPNs, how to set up a lot of different things. So that was helpful, but I had to quit because my health was going nowhere, which is what happens when you take horrible jobs. And so a friend of mine said to me, you know what, events are a lot like film. And I said, no, events are for stupid people. But I had no job. So I went to get a job at Charles Schwab, where they needed an event manager, and I started managing events for them. They were golf tournaments and educational events all around the country. And here's when I learned another thing. I was not ready to start a company yet. I needed to learn, for what I do now, I needed to learn how big business operates. And this is when I learned big business communication. This is when I learned about enterprise level operations. I needed this job. Ask, you now get my personality. Charles Schwab Financial Company. How much do you think I liked this job? Like 0, exactly. None. I hated this job. But I stayed here for 3 years. It was the best thing I have done for me starting my company. And I am here to tell you that I've made a lot of bad decisions. I'll tell you about some more. One of the best decisions I made was staying here for 3 years, because it's like boot camp. And at some point, you will have to do boot camp. And boot camp is not fun, and boot camp is not enjoyable. But it is so useful for what I learned here and how that became a rocket ship for my company. So while I was there, I also started to see a gap in the marketplace. And this is where it comes down to all you entrepreneur people. Where was the gap? Well, I started to see that a lot of people treated event people as though they were logistics. And I thought, wait, that's dumb, because I had been in marketing. And marketing, I was in charge of making sure that our events were strategic. And I oversaw people who worked in events who were like, I did a party. And I'd be like, why do you think it was successful? And they're like, everybody liked the food. I'm like, we're not a catering company. I don't care if anybody liked the food. Did we get more customers? Did you get anything? And they were like, no, it was really fun. Lots of people around the pool. And I thought, okay, I could take over this sector. Because if that is what the marker is, this doesn't make any sense. Events are extraordinarily expensive. They take a ton of resources, and people are thinking of them as though they're just a party, a logistics, and they're getting praised for it. That is not the way this should be. So the gap in the marketplace I saw is that even though most event companies start right after everything has been decided, we back it all the way up. If you have an idea that you want to do an event, a conference, a convening, we start there. Why? Why do you want to do that? Who do you want to invite? Have they come before? Are they at different learning levels? Do you have 101s and 501s? Where do you want to do it? Why there? Should we do it regional? Should we go national? Should we start small? Perhaps we should do Zooms. You can see we zoom it right back up. And that created a new category for us called strategic engagement around events. That will come in handy later, because timing. I tried to sell this as packages to people. The market wasn't ready, because I would try to sell it, and they're like, no, we know everything we want to do. We know how to do our event. We just need you to do logistics, you little, look at you talking with your big words. So after I went through that, I said, Okay, well, I don't think the market is ready, so we will continue to do events, but one day it will be ready for that. And we sold a few packages here and there to do strategy. And this is just a little write-up on what we do, how we talk about ourselves. And we came up with a 5-phase approach and the 10 essentials to add science to this. Because events aren't something you just kind of come up with. Like, oh, I'm organized. If somebody says that to me, I'm like, great, you're an adult. Good job, you. In order to do strategic convenings and events, you need to think in a systems process way. And we test on that. Because if you do not have a brain that thinks in systems and process, you actually cannot do our job. That is not possible. I'm organized. Great. Go be organized at Hobby Lobby. It's awesome. But you need to be systems directed to succeed in this. And for those people, this is a dream. It's just like me. I am not into blood and guts. You put me into biology and all that, bleh. Just like you put somebody who's not systems oriented into our world, they hate it. But the people that really understand it love it. And what are the services we do? Because I know a lot of people don't understand what we do. These are the services we offer. If you are our clients, this is how we outline what we do for you. We do speaker management, we do venue management, we take over all these various different things we do for you. If you said, hey, we want to take over the Rose Bowl, we want to have people parachuting in, we want 500 buffalo and turn it into, I don't know, a jungle with 1,500 palm trees, you know what I would say? Sure, that's not a problem. Because my brain can quickly and easily understand the systems to get there. Because that's systems. That's not organization, it's system process thinking. And that is what we specialize in. And then you just show up with those buffalo and those trees or those celebrities or those performers. But we do all of it for you. And this is just a little bit more on our signature framework. Why do we have a signature framework? Because if you are starting a business, you need a way to talk about it. And a lot of people will say, what do you do? It's very hard for someone to purchase a pound of project management, right? What do you have to show for it? What do you really do? I mean, I don't cook, I hire. I don't put up lights, I hire an AV company. I don't do sound, I hire the sound person. But what we do are all of these things, and we do a process system around them. This allows me to get money for what I do. So whatever you are starting a business in, you need a way to codify and talk about what you do. Because if it takes you a really long time, no one understands it. When we do our pitch, this is what we talk about. We have a 5-phase approach, and we have 10 essentials that we cover. When we cover those, we provide you a business plan for your event. And better than that, we give you a 3-year business plan. Because our philosophy is you never, ever should do one event. If you do, don't. It's like building a house to live in it for one day. Instead, you should build a house and live in it for a lot of days. And that is why we do a 3-year business plan for you. And this is how we do it. That allows me to put a price tag on this. And our strategy packages sell for $50,000. So it's a very lucrative process. But it's a process, and that's why it's important. It's not organizing. We also have slides like this that outline every single thing that we do. Why? Because we are constantly trying to educate the customer, because it's very difficult when you say the word event, which we try not to. We say convening, conference, because otherwise people get a lobotomy. It's an event. Oh my gosh, I do those. Do you? Really? No, you do. Okay. We outline these to show this is exactly what you're paying for. So for our project lead, this is what they do. It also helps us hire. Because when we hire a project lead, we can say, this is what you do. All these steps are under your control. They're under your command, and you better know how to do them. And these are the places we've shown up. So we work all over the world. We have 65 project managers all over the world. And because we have a process, a system, an approach, we are able to work everywhere. And these are some of the folks we've worked with as well. And so when I started to look at where the gap was in the marketplace, I decided, going back to my risk part of my story, I thought, you know what, if this is America and I'm a hard worker, I'm just going to do it. So I quit my job at Schwab, and I had $1,400 in the bank. I do not come from money. There was no parachute underneath me or above me, either one. And I got a credit card again, and I started to look for clients. And my first client, because I had been networking a lot, was someone from the Skoll Foundation. And I'd never heard of that, but I knew I wanted to work in events that would somehow help and save the world. I was a Pollyanna. I always like to say we're Pollyanna with a SWAT team mentality. And she got me an interview, and we got the gig, and we have been the only company that's produced the Skoll World Forum since then. And then what I realized is billionaires like to talk to each other. I'm sure there's some billionaires out here. You know what I'm talking about. And so that then led to Rockefeller. That then led to Ford. That then led to Hewlett. That then led to Omidyar. So basically, if you're a billionaire and you want to save the world and do a conference, chances are you call us. And we put that together. But it started slowly, right? I got one, then I got the other. I did some stupid events in there. And now this is what we are known for. And then I will say one of our top clients that we got, which was Rockefeller, we were doing their events at Bellagio Center, not Bellagio Vegas, the real Bellagio in Italy, where they own half the mountain. And they do these extraordinarily high-level convenings. And we had just gotten this gig. We just did an AI, world leaders in AI, flew them all into Milan, took them up to Bellagio. And I was like, we had a master service agreement on the table. And then COVID hit. I was like, oh no. So I run live events. COVID hit. What do you think I did? What? No? Anybody know why the skunk is up there? And it wasn't because it stunk. I mean, it did, but still. So the one thing, after I cried a little bit, which I did, because all our business evaporated overnight, I then decided, I had heard of a concept in Silicon Valley called Skunk Works. Has anybody heard of that? Nice, good. This is a very good concept for you to know. Skunk Works in Silicon Valley basically means that Google Glasses, anybody heard of Google Glasses? Google Glasses came out of this. So Google has so much money, and a lot of these tech companies do, that they set up departments with no purpose. They call them Skunk Works. And they say, you're super smart, you're the smartest person here, and you're super smart, and you're just gonna get together and pay you a bunch of money, sit in that room and think of smart shit. That's what you're gonna do, right? And that is Skunk Works. And so if you have a Skunk Works, you don't know what they're gonna come up with. And so Google Glasses came out of that. So I thought, you know what, we need a Skunk Works. We need Skunk Works to think about how we are going to pivot, because I'm not going to lose my company. And people were calling me like I was dying. How are you doing, Heather? You're in live events. And I said, we're doing well, because every week we have a Skunk Works call with my team. And I said, we're going to think like aliens. We have landed on a planet. And on this planet, no one can meet in person. No one. You must stay far away from each other. How do we get business on this planet? We are a Skunk Works team. And we came up with a lot of stuff. In fact, the first thing we came up with was, wait a second, those strategy packages that I've been trying to sell all those years, guess what COVID actually shone a light on? Nobody had any strategy. Not for their events, they'd just been doing logistics by the pool. All of a sudden, it shone bare. They had zero strategy. They didn't know why they were convening people. They didn't know who they were convening. And so those strategy packages I talked to you about that have been on the shelf that I had the wrong timing for, flew off the shelf. We made more money in the 2 years of COVID than any other time in my business. That's crazy. That's why I have a house in Salt Lake City. Crazy. So Skunk Works, alien thinking, whereas I knew a lot of businesses and live events who went under. We did not. We didn't just survive, we thrived. I know that's a totally cliche, but I'm going to use it because that was incredibly important. At the same time, too, I thought, you know what? I want to teach. I want to teach kids stuff. Why not? Why not? And San Diego State had just created a master's in events and hospitality. And so that 10 essentials that I'd come up with, I did a whole video series I locked it down. I had a guy come and video me, and we sold it to San Diego State for the 10 essentials because it was all online. It was all video. And now I teach in their master's program. I teach financials and economics, which is hilarious, because the only reason I don't have a double major in business is because I had to take economics pass-fail. We're not going to talk about that again. But that also happened during COVID. So COVID was actually great for us. But then there are more obstacles in our story, and this is something that all entrepreneurs, you will hate. This is a legislature. These are politicians. How much do you think politicians know about business? You did the other zero. Zero, yeah. Most of the time, yeah, about that. And I was living in California where I think they know less than zero. And so, or below zero, they passed a law that really hurt event companies, and I can tell you about it afterwards. So that was another blow. So right as we started to get on top, COVID, bam, they hit us with this law. That's why I had to move. So the legislature, for all you entrepreneurs, you know how I said you might be interested in business, but business interested in you? You may be not interested in politics as an entrepreneur. Oh, politics is very interested in you because policy is being passed by people who have never signed the front of a check. And that is shorthand for people who've never had to make their own money by going out there, finding it, getting it in the bushes, dragging it back, and putting it on the plate. They have just waltzed in and had a pillow put under their butt and thought money came from the sky. Those are the people who pass a lot of laws that you will have to deal with. So trust me, you are all now very interested in these people. And that has nothing to do with partisanship. That is just politicians. And if you find one who understands business, you get very excited. So we went through that, and then we started building back our client base again. You can see some of our clients in there. And then here's a couple more of clients that we're working with this year. So we do have a pretty broad spectrum. Jobs with Justice will be in Atlanta. We're doing Forward Global in Whistler, Canada in about 3 or 4 weeks. And then there was another obstacle, a snake in the grass. Big competitor who did not fare as well during COVID started to move into my space of social impact events and started to underbid us, just like Walmart going into a large town and taking down all of the mom and pop stores. He underbid one of our clients half price. Now he can't survive that, but he certainly can wipe us out of that client, and he did. So that was another sad walk that I took. I told these guys earlier that I would take walks to get over big blows like that. There is no way he would have been able to do that for half price, but now he got that client, and he's had him for the last 6 years. So I thought, okay, we're going to go back to the thinking of resilience, just like, COVID or skunkworks or aliens. And I thought, this time, I'm going to change my playing field. He just beat me on my playing field. And I play soccer. So I pictured him beating me on baseball, because I'm not that good at baseball. But you know where he can't beat me is soccer. So I'm going to change the field entirely. I'm going to create my own event, because the one event he can't get is one I create. So that was the way I combat the snake in the grass. So I created the Impact Lounge. And I thought the Impact Lounge is one that I will own, and I will bring together everything that I know. And what do I know? Well, let's look at the inventory. I know social impact organizations at the highest level. I also know the movie industry. I've also done something at Sundance. Let's put all those together, and let's take over Sundance again, because frankly, they're getting a bit lazy. So I created the Impact Lounge, which brings all those groups together, where changemakers meet filmmakers, to use film, media, TV to change the world for good. We debuted at Sundance in 2024, and then on Main Street, 2025, we took over the largest space in all of Park City, 14,000 square feet, and we had interns from Utah State, so you can probably meet some. And it became a very big deal. So this year, there's articles being written about us that we were the biggest thing at Sundance this year. If you look us up, you'll find a lot of articles about us. This is what it looks like. We rebuilt the entire thing. I think you're getting the idea. I like to do big stuff. There's no windows in Prospector, so we built them. So it now has windows. They kept them permanently. So if you go there, you'll be able to see them. They also kept all our furniture. So we completely rebuilt that entire space. And we were the inside cover of Variety magazine, which was also very cool. And then I thought, well, now I'm in it, might as well keep going. So I started my own awards show. Why not? 3 days before the Oscars. And we give awards for Changemakers and Filmmakers. And we gave a lot of awards for everyone who had made it through the fire, the organizations helping, and films about the fire. And we did that, like I said, 3 days before the Oscars. I gave an award to Wild Robot, because I love Wild Robot. Super cool. And the director and producer came, which was super cool. And this year we're doing it again. So I've got 5 weeks to put that together. And then I thought, well, now I'm really in it. So I might as well go to Cannes. Oh, now I'm really in it. I might as well go to UN. Oh, I might as well go to Cannes again. And then this year we'll do South by Southwest. We've done Tribeca. We'll also do Aspen Ideas Festival. And we'll do TED in 2027. So it grew real fast. I hope we can afford it. And here's just a video to kind of show you what it's like. It is a hub. It's a place to bring together a lot of the creatives, the change makers, for three things: connection, conversation, and content.
How can we get the entertainment industry? How can we get film? How can we get you guys involved in this and be part of pop culture and really push this forward?
Who's got the power?
We got the power!
What kind of power?
Filmmaker power!
All right!
Change makers are the ones who make us have the difficult conversations. Filmmakers shine a light sometimes in places that we don't always want to go.
Wherever filmmakers and change makers are, we want to be there.
You must make somebody else's dreams come true before your dreams come true. That's how you build a community. The essence of authenticity is the core principle which makes you sustainable.
Remind each other to show your light and don't dim it for anybody.
Community and hope, and the idea that at some point we will all have to change the way we think, the way that we have been programmed. We'll have to challenge that.
All of us have within us the power to change the world.
Films are just so incredibly powerful. You have to leverage that opportunity to work towards a better future. You have to.
So, woohoo! So that is the Impact Lounge. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea. There's even more videos on our site. But I have to say I'm having a ball doing it. The bad part is it is taking every bit of cash from my other company. So that's the bad part. So hopefully that will turn around. However, we did just get our first grant. So there are signs of life. If any of you have a major private foundation and you're here because you wanted to see what a state school was like, please come see me afterwards. I'd be happy to walk your family wealth through the giving of the nonprofit Impact Lounge. Anyway, all right. I'm going to take a couple minutes and just talk about some lessons as we've gone through this. I know you've picked up probably quite a few, but a few lessons are, when you want to move fast, there's a great statement. I'm sure if any of you are in the military, ROTC, they say fast is smooth, smooth is slow. And so I think of that when I think of my time at Charles Schwab. And I have a gal who's working for me right now, and I can see that she's a lot like me, and I'm like, don't do it. She's getting the money madness, where you feel like you're smart. I'm sure all you guys are smart. And you're very capable, very capable. And so you want the title, and you want the money. I should be a director, and I should be this. And the worst is if you have somebody in your life, a partner, a friend going, you should get more money, you should get more. Those people exhaust me. And they don't last very long because they're trying to go too fast. You are all very smart. You are all very capable. You will also all have to pay your dues. That is how the world works. If you didn't want to do that, you shouldn't have picked this planet, because that's how it works on this planet. is you're going to have to go a bit slower than you want to. You may have to work at Charles Schwab for 3 years. You just might. And that's how it works. So don't be one of those people that gets money title madness when you're like, I'm 20 and I'm amazing. Okay, breathe, breathe, breathe. Maybe by the time you're 27, you get that promotion. But chill. And I wish somebody would have told me that, because I would not have taken that horrible job, because I was thinking too fast. And when I took Schwab, that was the smart thing to do. The other lesson is, when you have an existential crisis, try to think like an alien. That is what we did during COVID. COVID was an existential crisis. I mean, I was running a live event firm when it was illegal to meet people in person. That is not great, right? That's like you're trying to sell shoes and all of a sudden everybody loses their feet around the planet. You have an existential crisis. So that's when think like an alien, think like a skunk works. But you've got to pull out of your head, and those things may happen. And then the other thing is that I learned, especially when I got overwhelmed, like yesterday, one of my team made a massive mistake worth tens of thousands of dollars, is only shoot the zombie in front of you. There's a lot of zombies in entrepreneurship. There are taxes, there's policy, there are employees that might steal from you, lie, post photos of their vacation when they're sick on Instagram. What is the zombie in front of you? And you must hone that skill. Because if you think of all the zombies, you will curl up in a little ball. What is the zombie in front of you? And you must hone that discipline. A few more. And so I'm a woman. I found the women pictures, thought that was cool. So when you face risk, think like a mountain climber. Mountain climbers, anyone knows, you have to lean away from the rock face, which feels counterintuitive. That feels more risky. And what I tell all my clients is, if you risk small, you are risking it all. Risking tiny actually gives you the best chance of failure. Because some of our clients, well, we're just going to do a little event. I'm like, that's going to be a little bitty failure. I don't like that. Going big, doing the Impact Lounge tiny, like a little dinner, would have actually probably had a much bigger chance of failure. Taking over the largest space on Main Street, that's going to make an impact. Taking over the largest space in all of Park City, that has a lesser chance of failure. So it's counterintuitive, but risking big is actually the one that gives you the most rewards, not risking small. Nobody wants a small shack. We're just going to do a little shack event. We don't do shack events. We do mansions. Maybe it's a tiny mansion, but it's a mansion every single time, because that is less failure. And then when you think of success, think like a hiker. I live in LA most of the time, and some people, success is Lamborghini, big house in Beverly Hills. For some people, the reason I like LA is everybody has a different definition. For some people, success is singing on the beach every day. No worries, no cares. And in LA, that's totally valid. And they act in some commercials on the side. When you hike, nobody wins, unless you're in a weird group of hikers, and you should drop them right away. But you're just hiking. You're just seeing stuff. And some of you like to see lakes, and some of you like to see the colors, and some of you like to see other stuff. But everybody has their different definition of success. I drive a 2007 RAV4 with a key. I love my key. I will never drive a car without a key. Those fob things, weird. And that is my definition of success. I was so excited when I got a RAV4. You have to have your own definition. If you are ruled by things like big house, Lamborghini, that is sad. I'm just going to judge on this sad. You need your own. If your own is you really like Lamborghinis, well, good. It's totally cool. But as an entrepreneur, you need to be very clear about that goal. Otherwise, you're going to chase something and wake up when you're whatever age and go, what did I do? So that is a big one. And then the last one is think like a fisherman. I'm sure you guys might have heard it in your business school, but there's a business guy, and he goes on a vacation in Mexico, and he's watching this guy, and he's catching all these fish. I was like, he's doing pretty good. And he walks over to him and he goes, you know what? If you hired another fisherman, you could probably catch more fish. And the guy goes, well, then what? He goes, well, then you could probably afford a bigger boat, and then you could get even more fish. He goes, then what? Well, then you could get a processing plant, and then you could process all those fish. The guy goes, and then what? And he goes, well, then you could get another processing plant, and you could start to ship them all over the world, and you'd be making so much money. And the guy goes, and then what? And he goes, well, then you could spend all your time fishing by the ocean. Huh. So think like a fisherman. Know what your end is in mind. My end is I am starting to write rom-coms because I want to get back into the movie industry. And I always wanted to be a writer, so I just put my first rom-com on Blacklist. I got all 7s. I'm very excited. Yay! And so, thank you. And so, yeah, and that is my fisherman journey that I really want to do. I want to write rom-coms. I want to teach executives public speaking. I want to teach kids like you. And that is my fisherman story that I cannot wait to get started. So please keep all of those lessons in mind. And this is my LinkedIn. If you'd like to link in with me, feel free. Now we can do some questions. Questions? Yes.
So, you said that you worked with the United Nations?
Yes.
What exactly did you do with them? That sounds super cool.
Oh, if you want to do an event there, it will make you gray and make you want to rip out every tooth you've ever had in your head. But other than that, it's an amazing place to work. It's phenomenal. It's incredible. And wow, isn't it incredible where our leaders are? That's when you do an event. So we've done 4 events there, and we've done 2 Impact Lounge events there. And so for our 2 different clients, for Caspian, we produced the Impact 2030, where all these college kids, like you all, came and created a presentation for SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And we produced that conference there. And then we did another one for Merit 360, which was companies that wanted to work in the UN SDGs. So we did another conference. And then because I have contacts there, you actually have to get a letter to be allowed to do an event at the UN from a member state, nation, or organization, which is very hard to get. But I know people, and so I said I want to have the Impact Lounge at the UN during High Security Week, which is really insane. And so we've done 2, one last year, one this year. And this year, just for fun, these are super fun, they misprinted all of our badges on the day of. So I was tackled by security trying to get them reprinted. Yeah, the year before, they decided not to hook up our sound, just for fun. But other than that, they're super cool, super fun. But it is interesting. I've been there multiple times. It's a very cool building. If you're not producing an event there, it is a really, really cool experience. And you get to meet a lot of, world leaders and heads of state. So, yeah, it is cool.
So you mentioned, being fired because you weren't, you didn't look the part, and obviously, as a woman in business, you kind of face, challenges with the minority. How did you keep up your confidence and keep, going for a ways?
Yeah, and it was from women. I mean, a man has never told me that. I will just be very honest. It was all the women. And so, I couldn't afford good clothes. But I think I was wearing JCPenney. I didn't know how to dress. And so actually a friend of mine set me up with this guy who was a lawyer who looked at me and he's like, that is what you wear to work? And I was like, yeah. And he actually taught me about fashion and true to form. I got a credit card. I was like, okay. And I went and bought just some very staple black suit. This was back then. You want to dress for wherever you're working. And a watch. That was the thing. And I didn't buy crazy expensive, but a nice watch. And the very next time I interviewed, I got a $45,000 raise. And I, sad to say, think it was the way I was dressed. And so I didn't buy a ton. I couldn't afford it. But that really taught me that if I wanted to work at a certain level, I needed to do that. So then I went to the Goodwill. And if you go to the Goodwill in places like Beverly Hills or Burlingame, honestly, you buy clothes there. And then you get them tailored. And I started to do that. So I would buy Goodwill suits at very high-end areas at the Goodwill. And then because I didn't have money. Like, I just didn't. I was making $17,000 a year when I was at Fox. So, but that changed a lot for me. And I think it changed the way I felt about myself. So, yeah.
So you mentioned going to like one of these big tech companies where you were market VP. What made it so bad there? What was so hard about it?
Well, other than the fact that they patted me on the head when they showed up for work, that really did happen. I'm from Idaho. I was like, I'm going to kill somebody. It wasn't that I was like, oh no. I was like, ooh, is murder legal yet? So that was bad. And then I would say the other thing is I just was uninterested in everything we were doing. And it taught me that you actually have to care a little bit about what you're doing, just even a little bit. I mean, we were working in dry domain name service management, which I can tell you all about. And I was writing white papers on DNS, outsourced DNS management using a black box proprietary software which had redundancy and failover capabilities. I still remember it. Oh, I was so bored. And I just thought every day I dreaded going in. I was hoping I'd get sick. And I think just being so bored, and I didn't think I was learning anything. Because at least at Schwab, I didn't like it, but I was learning. And I think as long as you're learning, and the environment was toxic. I mean, I'm not joking. They patted me on the head. I was going to bite their arm off. But I think those three things made it just untenable for me. And yet I was being paid a lot of money, more than I'd ever made in my life. And I just couldn't wait to quit. Yeah. Yep, one more. Sorry. So I do a lot of reading, and I'm always surprised when people don't do that. So every day I subscribe to multiple newsletters, and they're all over, because they're in the events industry, which I have to keep up on, because the visa rules are always changing, currency exchange rates are changing, Marriott and Hilton are opening more hotels I need to know about. So I have to keep up on that. You know, you don't get assignments when you're an adult. You actually have to learn. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you better keep learning about your business area. You better learn about tariffs. You better learn about that, or else you're going to get smacked upside the head with one of those things, and that's not good. So you better be subscribing to every newsletter in your industry and reading it every day. And then on top of it, I also now read all my newsletters in film. So I read the dailies, I read the industry, I listen to podcasts when I go on my walk about the affinity economy, the fact that a YouTuber just beat every other studio in a release this week. I don't know if you saw that. That's crazy, right? That's great. 72 million followers. He was only second to Get Help, Sam Raimi film. I mean, this is mind-blowing in the movie industry. And if you're not keeping up on that, you're not going to keep current. So I have 5 film newsletters. I have probably 4 event newsletters, and so when I wake up, and this is the event, this is the entrepreneur life, I start to read at least for 45 minutes in the morning, every single morning. This is like part of your workout, part of your reading. You do not get to escape without it. Like if you're in manufacturing, you better be reading up, and you better be reading up on all of it, because you have to stay current, and that's a big thing. And you just need to make sure you're reading every single thing, listening to every single thing possible. So, okay. All right. Thank you so much.